Welcome to the Natural History Cupboard. Come on in.
And welcome back to the Natural History Cupboard podcast, the place where the weird and wonderful parts of the natural world come together. I'm your host, Gareth, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Aaron. Aaron, what have you been up to?
We've had quite a good Sunday, didn't we?
Not bad.
The two of us met up with Drew, Jess, and my partner and daughter.
Mhm.
Went for a walk through the woods.
One heck of a walk, especially towards the end.
Yeah.
Very uphill.
That last hill was pretty intense, wasn't it?
Yeah, check that out me. I realised how unfit I am after not being a zookeeper for a couple of years. And it's like, well, yeah, you've lost your ability to go up hills. You've sat at a desk too long.
Yeah, because all zoos in Britain are built on hills. Not, but they feel like
There's always a hill somewhere.
Feel like they are.
Yeah.
Other than that, I've been watching the fish in the local river. Me, my daughter, and our cat were down there just now before you turned up. Before you turned up, because immediately before you turned up, we were in the middle of the Nerf war, which was good. And also, I've spent a lot of time just sitting in the front garden with Merlin Bird ID app, just checking birds.
Any notable species?
Well, maybe not. Certainly not as notable as like the last time I mentioned it on one of our episodes when I got a willow warbler. But
Snap, got one of them the other day.
Yeah, nice. I do like the goldfinch, even though it's
Goldfinches are
not
nice.
rare. I just think it's a very pretty bird.
They're one of the prettiest birds in Britain, I think.
Yeah, I do like them quite a bit. So and I haven't seen one or even got one on my app until this afternoon. So that it was really cool. But other than that, it's just been, the normal songbirds around here, robins, and what else we had? Blackbirds,
You've got
chaffinch.
sparrows at the front, haven't you?
Yeah, but it's nice because I like the sound. I think other than being able to listen to a song as it's going on and see which one it is,
That's the definite benefit of that app.
yeah, you get to learn the bird song. But the other advantage to it is that you just you're connected. Even though you're using a bit of technology, you're connecting with nature by sitting there actually actively listening for it.
I think it's brilliant. I mean, I like using it for the simple reason. By the time I get my glasses off like that to get binoculars up, the bird is gone.
Yeah.
I've got very little chance of being able to see them as easily. So I suppose doing it by hearing them, you know that they're around you, and then you can hone in on them. And then if you're lucky enough, you can, if they're sitting there, you can try and see them. So yeah, I mean, it's really good. Using that, I was able to, when we were, where were we?
We were at Brownsham.
That's when we were at Brownsham. I completely remember where we were, which is on the coast, but it's a National Trust site. And Drew, being the National Trust member of the three of us, was able to sort of give us a bit more insider knowledge of the place. Brilliant place to go looking for bluebells.
Yeah,
something to take in mind. But using that app, I was able to track down a marsh tit, a particularly rarer bird, that he was then able to hone in on with his camera and get some decent pictures. Well, I mean, it's a really cool app, and I'd encourage anyone anywhere in the world to get it because it's made by the Cornell Labs of ornithology, and they do some amazing stuff.
The other thing that I've seen this week, though, is the roe deer that we keep seeing at different moments. We're never there at the same time. Well, the other night, Saturday night, Sunday morning, really, we had to go and I had to go and collect Atta from town.
Yeah,
she'd been painting the tiles.
Right.
She'd been partying, and on the way up the hill, I saw the two roe deer. This time, usually I see them, but they dart off into the hedge. This time, I feel like they thought they had the street to themselves because it's quite
standing out in the middle.
Stood there for a while and I actually got a good look at them. One was a female, one's a male. He's got antlers about that big off of him. So yeah, that was cool.
So I just wanted to also mention, I completely forgot last week that I managed to see part of the solar eclipse that was happening the other week by standing in the middle of Asda car park. There was a very nice gentleman from the North Devon Astronomical Society who had a telescope set up with all the appropriate filters and everything, so you could look directly at the sun with this thing.
That's cool.
And see the moon passing in front of it. So I got to see the last sort of 10, 20 minutes worth. He was saying there was only about 10, 20 minutes worth until it would be completely, not worth seeing. But yeah, really nice gentleman, and certainly worth shouting out. I did say we'd do that, but I completely forgot about that last week. The other thing I managed to do this week, it's been like a really jam-packed week. Took students on a birdwatching trip. That was a bit of a disappointment. There wasn't as much out this week at Fremington. We didn't see the ibis or spoonbills or anything really. Actually, it's kind of a dull spotting session. The weather was lovely, but didn't see anything. I think they knew, you can't have the good weather and the good spotting. You've got to have one or the other. And then the other one, we took a bunch of students to do pond dipping, found some lovely palmate newts, loads of really nice freshwater invertebrates. I managed to find a devil's coach horse, which are a really cool beetle, like around the pond edges. We found some frogs, loads of frog spawn. And I think the students enjoyed it, even though there was the herd of cattle that followed us along and the Mangalitsa pigs as well that followed us along, which are fluffy pigs. Pigs with a perm is the best way of describing them. But yeah, it's been a bit of a full week.
It's been, been a good week.
Well, should we head into the news? I think we've got some interesting news this week.
Yeah, good to say that.
It's the news!
Right, well, we're into this week's news. We're going to do things a little bit differently this week, as there's some more interesting news that has come out of late. In fact, we're going to cut things down a little bit so we can fit more of that in. So, Erin, take us away. What are we looking at?
Yeah, so my first article comes to us from BBC News. Slovakia backs plan to shoot 350 bears after a man killed in bear attack. This article covers the Slovakian government's shallow attempt to cover up their abysmal failure to protect its people from bears by instead greenlighting a genocide. If you want to see European bears in the wild, I'd advise protesting with your wallet and visiting Slovakia's direct neighbours instead.
So one human is worth 350 bears, according to them.
But in the same week, a woman was trampled by a cow in Wales, and it barely made the news.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything about that.
Yeah.
Although, to be fair, there's probably been at least 350 cows killed in Wales,
Yes, but
within the week.
But there is a
farmed version,
double standard, and you can't say, oh, it's Slovakia and Wales. No, because if this had happened in Slovakia, they would not be killing 350 cows for it.
Indeed. So mine also comes from the BBC, and it's adders at risk as photographers try to spot them. This is the news that at the moment, Cannock Chase in Staffordshire is seeing a lot of disturbances of people basically trying to take photos of adders, which they are an absolutely stunning species of snake. But in fact, the site has attracted nearly 3 million people a year, which obviously that's not all on at the moment, but has certainly increased on numbers. And the fear is that they are starting to impact on the adders' habitat as well as their behavior. So, yeah, responsible tourism and responsible animals thing is very much in the need there.
Yeah, definitely. So my final headline comes to us from Sci News, as 2 new pterosaur species are discovered in Asia. Now, this is actually 2 different headlines, which I'm amalgamating into one. The first, a near complete fossilized skeleton of a Wukongopterid pterosaur has been classified as a new species. So this one was found in Liaoning, China, and would have lived around 160 million years ago in the Middle Jurassic. The second, a gnathosaurine pterosaur named Garudapterus buffatalti, is represented by partial jaws alone and was discovered in Phra Prong, Thailand. where it will have lived some 130 million years ago in the early Cretaceous. It represents the only cranial evidence of pterosaurs in Thailand, and I'm very sorry for my awful pronunciation of things there.
It's only going to get worse with my creature feature. That's all I can say. So sadly, my last article is not a fun one at all. It comes from the BBC also. Peregrine falcon eggs smashed on St Albans Cathedral on a live stream of all things. And this is the rather sad news that someone has deliberately, and even been caught on camera, just their legs so far, basically been caught, well, smashing and walking on the eggs of the peregrine falcon nest on St Albans Cathedral, which presumably they're on the roof as well. So it can only be a fairly small list of people who have access up there. The police are currently investigating it. And I hope they catch them and, well, personally, I think throw them off the cathedral. But hey ho, that's just me.
They'll probably get a slap on the wrist. It was definitely done deliberately as well.
Well, yeah, you don't accidentally walk into a peregrine falcon nest.
Yeah, they knew what they were doing, and it was yeah. So with that said, that's the end of our headlines for this week. We're going to move swiftly into the main topic because it might take up a bit of time. Now, in this main topic this week, I had intended to celebrate a milestone being announced by Colossal Biosciences this week. It's a claim that I'm sure you've all heard or read, which is basically we've de-extincted the direwolf. I wanted to celebrate this, but also add the caveat that maybe everyone needs to pump the brakes just a little bit. But I felt that this article from New Scientist, which is titled "No, the direwolf has not been brought back from extinction," kind of pumps the brakes in a more eloquent way than I can, which frees me up at the end to tell you why you should celebrate this anyway. Because
the win that it is.
Yeah, the win is an undeniable milestone, and if nothing else, it's cool.
Yeah.
Anyway. So I'm actually going to follow the article pretty closely to the word and then spin off at the end. So Colossal Biosciences, who you'll be somewhat familiar or aware of, as we do tend to follow their progress quite closely.
Yep.
And we have interviewed Professor Andrew Pask, who heads up their Thylacine branch. They've claimed that two boys born in October named Romulus and Remus.
Brilliant names.
Brilliant names, yeah. The girl name was a bit of a letdown.
Yeah.
The girl who was born a few months later was named Khaleesi. To be fair, George R.R. Martin is one of their investors, so I suppose he should.
No, sorry, but you could have named it Stark or something.
Yeah, it would have
Arya Stark.
Yeah, Arya would have been a good one.
There you go.
Ghost, since it's white, and there's only one white direwolf in that program,
and that would have made far more sense than the Mother of Dragons.
Yes. The Mother of Dragons is a wolf is being named after her. Anyway,
that wasn't even her actual name.
No, that
literally means leader of the Dothraki.
Yes.
So it's got to do with horses.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a weird nerd moment there.
Yeah, but it's true.
It's true, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so Romulus, Remus, and Khaleesi are the first direwolf pups to be born since the species went extinct some 10,000 years ago, which is just incredible.
Yeah.
And there's actually a video that I'll see if we can put on that is of them howling for the first time. It's the first time the world has heard that voice for 10,000 years, at least. So what the website actually says is, on October 1st, 2024, for the first time in human history, Colossal successfully restored a once eradicated species through the science of de-extinction.
I'd like to point out they weren't eradicated.
No, and
they died out due to competition with grey wolves and change in the ecosystem.
Yeah,
this is not a human killed off species. This one.
No. This is this was climate change. The increase of cat diversity and the grey wolves that were just better.
So I do find because I read this same article as well. And I found that a little bit like, no, we didn't. We didn't do anything with these ones.
There's a few things we'll probably come on to this. In fact, I'm pretty sure we will. But there's a few ways in which the marketing for what has actually happened is played fast and loose with the English language.
Yes, yeah.
But we'll get on to that. So it continues. After a 10,000-year absence, our team is proud to return the direwolf to its rightful place in the ecosystem, which is another bit we should probably highlight in a minute. Now, this all sounds wonderful, and I got swept up in emotion hearing this news, but as many across the world started to share their joyous emotional response, I actually realized that I think we were overjoyed by two different events. But like I say, I'll get onto that later. So, what is a direwolf, and how or where do these pups fit into the pack?
Oh God.
So to speak, direwolves are extinct canines, and they're pretty big ones too, standing at around the same dimensions as the largest of today's grey wolves and weighing ever so slightly more.
The first thing I said to you is, why are they white?
Yeah.
Because
And I said my answer to you at that point, I hadn't read that far. My answer to you was I don't know if they selectively bred.
they did, but
I mean, they did, yeah. Five. I think I might cover this in a minute, but 5 of the 20 genes that were edited were just for color.
Yeah.
And I said I don't know if it's to do with that. I didn't know at the time. I don't know if it's to do with the with what did I say to you? I can't remember. It doesn't matter. I didn't know the answer basically.
No. It's still very
answer
early
is-
into this being released. Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, but despite the physical similarities, direwolves are not, in fact, wolves.
No.
In fact, it is a common and ongoing topic of conversation to call them dire dogs instead, to remove the confusion. It's not, as some people are saying online, that they are more closely related to dogs, because dogs have more, dogs are wolves.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily grey wolves, but the wolf that was domesticated to create the dogs today, that is the wolf that became the grey wolf, or gave rise to the grey wolf,
Yeah.
I should say. So you can think of dogs and wolves as sister species, in which case the dire dog or dire wolf, whatever you want to call it, is no closer to a dog than it is to a wolf.
I believe there's about 6 million years separating grey wolves
There
and
is.
dire wolves.
That's right, yeah.
It's about the
when
same
they're
amount of time that humans and chimps.
Yeah. So we can speak as to what they actually are in a future creature feature, and I think that would be a good idea to
I
cover
think you should
dire
definitely do
dogs or
dire
dire wolves.
wolves. Yeah.
So maybe I'll fit that one in this year as one of my extinct species, although not extinct anymore, apparently.
Well,
Yeah, we'll get onto that bit in a minute. But despite sharing roughly 99.5% of their DNA, that is grey wolves and dire wolves, they are actually pretty far removed in an evolutionary sense from the grey wolves. What these pups are, and this is not to try and disappoint anyone, is effectively genetically modified grey wolves. But I still find this exciting. We'll get onto it. Getting ahead of myself. Colossal has made 20 gene edits. 15 are based on the direwolf genome. 5 are based on coat color to ensure, like I said, that they get the direwolf coat being demonstrated. According to Beth Shapiro on the direwolf branch team, it will be around a year before we start to see any of the other morphological traits that are different between grey wolves and direwolves being displayed in these 3 specimens. So I can kind of hear people asking now the same question as the article poses: are they really direwolves at all? And the answer is no, depending on who you speak or who you ask. If you are one of these people who believe that the Quagga project is bringing Quagga back to life by selectively hybridizing zebra, or if you think that any of the Auroch projects are legitimately resurrecting that cow, then good news, these cubs are direwolves. You genuinely cannot praise or criticize those 2 projects and treat this project any differently.
no, they're just going about it in a far less lab-based sense.
And the only difference is that instead of selective breeding for skin deep appearances, this company has actually genetically edited their embryos. And they have used actual direwolf genetic markers for this, which they got from a preserved specimen.
There's a tooth and an inner ear bone.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So they may not be actual direwolves, but if anything, they're closer to the direwolves than the other 2 species are to their extinct cousins. But I don't think that's the important part of this story.
Well, I like to point out that something that was raised in one of the interviews that I've seen.
Mm.
They said it depends how you classify a species.
Oh, that was Beth Shapiro that said this.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I like what she said because species is an artificial construct that we've created. It's basically a storage cabinet, and we've got little boxes, and you put the gulo in this one. You put the bear 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 over in this one. You put the Ursus maritinus in this one. And you basically have everything in its own little box. Nature doesn't work that way because otherwise, how would one species become another? The species are just blobs that morph until eventually you get one that is so different from the other one that it is considered a new species.
Yeah.
And by doing this gene editing aspect of it, you are putting in all the bits and pieces that will turn that animal from one to either morphologically, so change to physically look like that animal, and in which sense, like the aurochs and the quagga projects, you could say it's that animal.
And eventually, even though this is slightly different, eventually those Amur tigers that were released into the former Caspian tiger range, because they
will become what was considered Caspian tigers.
They will take on the same traits.
So it depends on how you see the world in that sense, because I do very much agree that species is an artificial construct that we've created. It's useful, very useful. Without it, taxonomy just wouldn't exist. But we have to realize that nothing in nature fits neatly into a box. There's always something that's going to go over the edge or go around the corner a bit. Nothing is straight lines. And by doing this, it's the exact same thing that when we did the interview with Andrew Pass, where he said they'll be using the
Dunart.
Oh yeah, they'll be using the fat-tailed Dunart as their surrogate, where they're going to change the DNA, change the genes of that. That will still be a Dunart, but it'll be a Dunart that will grow up to look like a thylacine.
Exactly. That is exactly what
it's still a Dunart, but it's a Dunart that's totally different. So
you're going to look at something that looks like a thylacine, same size, same appearance, and then you're going to look at the Dunart, the fat-tailed Dunart, which is smaller, obviously, and you're going to have to, if you don't want to call this a direwolf, then you're not going to be able to call that a thylacine.
Well, as I always say when I've ever got any of my students, it's like embrace your inner fish, and they go, "What do you mean?" Well, you are part fish. You've got all of the same parts of you that a fish has. You are a fish, and if you take it from a taxonomic sense of things, all animals in Sarcopterygia, which is the group which is the lobed-finned fish. You are a lobed-finned fish. These are your lobed fins.
Yeah.
It's just that, if you start taking things outside of, like denying one box, you've got to deny the rest of them as well.
Yeah.
And everything just goes all out of place. So, this is as much a direwolf as a direwolf. It's just not a direwolf.
Not a direwolf. Yeah. But
it's not the original. It's a remake.
Yeah, that's kind of a good way of putting it. I actually don't think so. Everybody is celebrating the direwolves and also arguing that direwolves have been brought back from extinction. And I do think that some of the language used to market this,
they have to make it sexy.
Yes, they've done it to be clear. I think people aren't realizing that they've done this to make it clever and to bring more attention to it. And that can only be a good thing because colossal biosciences pump funds into conservation.
Yeah.
So the more eyes on a direwolf means the more eyes on the grey wolf, who could really need it right now, especially with a certain someone in a particular seat of power. But I don't think those people who are arguing against the linguistics of the marketing and those people who are like in like head over heels, like happy that a direwolf has come back, I think they're all missing the important part of this story. And this is the part that that I got emotional about, or almost drew a tear from me, because I think it's really important. It's such a breakthrough, and a special breakthrough at that. If you'll hear me out, I have good. I think we have good cause to celebrate,
Yeah.
and I think I actually have some actual evidence to support my stance. So I grew up learning about cloning via Dolly the sheep.
Ah, yes.
She was a lamb that was cloned from a donor, uh, riddled with health problems from the very start of her life and dying young. Remus, Romulus, and Khaleesi are healthy and show signs of continued health, and that's a milestone.
Yeah.
Remus and Romulus are 6 months old.
Mm.
It is a milestone that these clones are healthy.
Other than some wolves we've seen.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Bite your tongue, Aaron. Bite your tongue, Aaron. They are grey wolves who, in their embryonic state, scientists managed to flick genetic marker switches to ensure that they present the morphology of a species extinct for at least 10,000 years.
Yeah.
Now, we may not see many obvious differences for the next year, but I argue that you can definitely see the odd difference in appearance. And they definitely present that white coat attributed to dire wolves. This is a milestone. The fact they've managed to find genes to locate in the tooth and the inner ear bit, they've managed to identify and isolate genes that they've been able to compare with grey wolves and work out which switches to flick on and off.
Yeah.
To recreate that in grey wolf embryos. That's a milestone. The potential for just that is incredible.
I want to know when I'm getting my Novasaur.
Yeah, yeah. Someone was talking about this. Online? Does this mean we're close to getting dinosaurs? And I said, you already have dinosaurs. They're birds, but this technology can.
I want a little feathered raptor.
You can get your chicken Novosaurus.
Oh yeah.
These dire wolves won't be bred from. Colossal have stated as much. These won't be bred from.
They didn't use frog DNA either.
No, but the lessons learned from this can be put to use elsewhere in conservation of struggling extant species, and it already is. The ghost wolf of the Texas coast was once thought to actually be coyotes, and they are in fact they are related to coyotes, but they are actually related to red wolves.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And they carry important genetic markers for the red wolf species. This biological data can be rescued to reinsert into the captive breeding program, which is actually breeding animals for wild release as we speak. And that increases the species' currently very shallow genetic diversity. So this has also had an impact on the conservation and recognition of the Karakora indigenous tribe who inhabit the same region. This is a milestone. They're actively not just using this science to conserve species that are struggling, which is something that I keep seeing people saying online. Oh, the money should be funneled into active conservation. The people who are investors in this, they're investing in this because they're interested in cloning. They're not interested in conservation, or they might be, and they might be splitting the money. But this money was never going to conservation. This money was always going to sci-fi-esque science. Yeah. So that's a false equivalency. The very fact that colossal biosciences are involved in red wolf conservation, and the very fact that this direwolf breakthrough and the lessons learned along the way have resulted in red wolf clones that are out in the wild today. That's huge.
That's going in very much in the right direction.
Yeah. It shows how the techniques and expertise gained through de-extinction sciences can aid conservation in the here and now. And it shows how conservation can get people from all walks of life involved and passionate about the animals that they share the world with. The tribe, the Karakora tribe, actually, there's a nice video online.
I watched that one. That was very good, actually.
They did a nice little ritual with them. Now, as you will all know by now, I think Gareth and I have shown a united front on de-extinction in recent years. Typically, Gareth was more for it, and I was than I was. Sorry, as you supported the thylacine, whereas I saw the whole thing as a Pandora's box. But nowadays, I think we're both there. I think at least for my
Oh,
part.
sure, clone a wolf and Aaron's there.
No, it was actually the thylacine that won me over. If you remember
Yeah.
the research leading up to that interview, I feel we agree. We use it for recently extinct species where habitat is available and requiring and the habitat is still requiring their lost species, and that they are not destined for zoo life, despite us both being pro zoo, and that these animals were wiped out by human activity. Now, for
Yes.
me, Gareth doesn't agree with me on this bit, and that's fine because I do think I think there are debates to be had on this. For me, the mammoth really is the furthest bracket. For Gareth, it's outside
It's
the bracket.
just over the fence.
For me, it's just inside the bracket.
Yeah.
I can't yet see justification further back than the mammoth.
Well, technically, this is further back from the mammoth.
It is, but
The
these
last
aren't
mammoth
being
was
bred.
3,000 years ago.
And these are 10,000 years ago. So yeah, as I was about to say, the direwolves were and still remain a no for me. But they're not going to breed from them, so that's fine. But I can't deny this event is the result of and the precursor to many milestones, all of which are positive. And if nothing else, I'd like to end on this on this kind of thought. We have Trump in the presidency. We have a two-party UK political system here that where both parties show utter disdain and contempt for the environment.
Yeah.
We are in the sixth mass extinction and are at fault for so many species disappearing. It is exceptionally heartwarming that humans have managed to, okay, not actually de-extinct an actual dire wolf, but bring about something that shows it can be done. Between this and the frozen zoo, we can sort of resurrect species like thylacines, we can de-extinct species like rhinos, and maybe we can prevent further species like tigers from going extinct too. Genuine de-extinction of the direwolf? No, but good enough. But genuinely, a milestone and genuinely positively heartwarming. Well, to quote old Stone Cold Steve Austin,
hell yeah.
do that bit. So yeah, I'm all for this. I'm really happy about it. I don't think I'm happy about the same things that other people are because I think people are reading too much into the Jurassic Park of it and thinking that they've actually got a T-Rex in front of them or actually got a direwolf in this case in front of them. For me, it is a direwolf and it's not a direwolf at the same time, but that's not what's important.
That's a remake.
It's direwolf too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, do you know what? I've got one question from all of this. So if they've kept the direwolf under wraps for 6 months, there has been no mention, as far as I'm aware, of direwolves and anything like this.
It has not, as far as
I want to know where the thylacine's at.
Well,
I want to know.
I was hoping you'd bring this up because I went into a whole colossal biosciences.
They already have some by this point.
They have embryos. They have embryos of the man. There's this kid who I can't remember where he was, but a sweet kid. Him and his mate won some science project that was based on colossal biosciences mammoth thing.
Yeah.
And they managed somehow to get in contact with Ben Lamb, who is the head of Colossal, and he invited them to do a lab tour, which is awesome. By the way, he seems like a ridiculously cool dude.
Seems like the anti-Elon.
Yeah, and also he talks about like once they've mastered this, given this tech, like this know-how for free, like to help. Like
everybody clone yourself some things.
Well, I think he means more for extant species and combat and conservation. But my point was, these kids went on a tour, and during this tour, they got to see like mammoth embryos. They got to inject genes into, I think, a thylacine. It might have been mammoth. I can't remember which, but basically they're there, and it just made me think. Like I think every time we bring there's news and it says mammoth will be brought back by 2028, thylacine to follow.
They're already there.
You and I kind of look at each other and go, yeah, but is it really 2028? That's only 3 years away. I think they might be closer than I give them credit for. I think 2028. I don't think it's far off. To see a mammoth.
It's only 3 years. So.
But I mean, sorry, yeah,
a hairy elephant.
I mean, a hairy elephant like is not far off. So yeah, I think this is cool from the nerd point of view. This has come from someone who was totally against this. Like just over a year ago. Um,
Well, I want
just,
I want my Novosaur, my Chickenosaurus.
yeah,
I've already said that the moment that becomes a thing, I'm buying one.
selling the house
I'm getting
and
one.
getting the
I'm having a chicken raptor that will roam around the house and probably cause havoc. But or it'll sit on my glove and I will carry it around and stroke it and in class and threaten the students and go on, try and leave.
Indian Runner-Duckosaurus Rex.
Yeah.
Be brilliant, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Anyway, should we move on from the news and head into our creature feature?
Let's do it.
It's the creature feature.
Right. Well, we open this week's creature feature with a bleak, snowy Canadian scene.
Ooh.
A lone figure treks across this wasteland as a smell catches its nose on the wind.
The Sasquatch.
One of a much larger foe. A look of steely determination, you could say, runs through its eyes. As it turns around to see its enemy towering above our hero, is a creature of immense size and power and ferocity. This dull-witted beast thinks it can pick a fight with one of the toughest creatures that Canada has ever birthed. And this creature will not back down, even if the opponent is much bigger than it. In fact, our hero prepares his claws ready to strike and shows its teeth in a sort of grimace preparing to fight its enemy. Ultimately, this opponent is scared to try its luck with our hero, and it knows best to back away. This leaves our protagonist to continue to its prize, a caribou carcass, which it starts to then feast on. So this week we are looking at the Wolverine, but which one? Well, as this isn't a Marvel podcast, the sensible answer is, of course, the animal. But
Yes.
did I have you there going initially, Aaron? Were you
You
thinking,
can set this up like it was Wolverine versus what's his name, his brother, Sabretooth.
yeah,
Yeah, I did think I thought we were going to meet Liv Schreiber and Hugh Jackman.
oh God, no, we're not doing that version of Wolverine. No. So to start things off, yes, obviously there is the big similarity between the Marvel character Wolverine and the actual creature. However, the actual creature is more fascinating, and I'm a massive fan of Wolverine. I think he is by far one of the best X-Men characters, and that's very easy to just go on that one as the easy one to pick on. Beast is my favorite.
I think Wolverine is my joint third with Beast.
Okay, yeah.
I think Storm and Nightcrawler come first for me.
Yeah. I mean, I do have a Wolverine Lego figure in
You
the
do,
front of my
it's
car,
very
and
cool.
Beast and Storm, as well as Deadpool
I
as
have
well.
Storm, which I'm very happy about.
So anyway, I thought we'd start this off with a little bit of a quiz round for you, Aaron,
Oh,
of
no.
Marvel or mammal.
I like it.
So, which one out of Logan or the brawny mustelid is known as lobezno in Spanish? And you're gonna have to tell me if I've said that right.
Lobethno. I think that might be. I think that might be Logan.
Okay. Just I'm not going to reveal the answers just
Okay.
yet. I will do this at the end. We'll come
Right.
back to this. Which one is known to eat frozen meat off the bone? And even the bone itself.
Well, that's Wolverine. The
Just answer for all of these.
The muscle.
Wolverine?
Yeah,
Wolverine.
I'm thinking that. Wolverine.
Okay, which one is known to use its claws to climb walls?
Well, that's definitely Logan.
Okay. Which one is known to just survive? Sorry, which one is known to not just survive in minus 40 degrees, but actually prefers it?
That's the animal. Wolverine.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we'll come back to those. And by the way, when I say minus 40 degrees, I mean both, basically. At that point, they are both minus 40.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. So the Wolverine, the real Wolverine, not the Hugh Jackman version, is the world's largest species of mustelid.
I feel you have to specify even further because there'll be some people who say Hugh Jackman's not the real Wolverine because he's too tall.
The non-Danny DeVito version, comic book character, yellow spandex. adamantium clawed creature is not. I've peppered Wolverine bits throughout this just to keep you happy. So, it is the largest member of the mustelid family, which we have touched on multiple times so far. Actually, it includes the otters, the martins, the badgers. An adult of these fantastic mustelids weighs roughly, an adult male that is, weighs 11 to 18 kilos. So they are a hefty animal. The females are about 6 to 12. So they're a considerable bit lighter. They're stocky, they're muscular, and they've got huge paws as well.
Yeah.
That is one of the biggest things you'll notice about these animals, they're huge paws. They stand around 30 centimeters tall at the shoulder, so not massive height-wise, but they are small dog size is the best way to think about it.
They're big enough.
Yeah. At the shoulders, they stretch about 91 centimeters to about 1.6 meters long, including the tail. So this is an animal that is of a decent size compared to mustelids as well. Certainly bigger than most other mustelids.
Yeah.
Their long, dense brown fur can be dark brown with golden patches, side stripes that sort of come across the shoulder. They also quite often have a white chest patch as well that helps them sort of stand out a little bit, I suppose. They've got quite often a bit of dark fur around their face, but generally they're sort of a dark, chocolatey brown over most of the body. Now, their fur as well helps them endure frigid Arctic temperatures. They walk with a plantigrade gait, which is the same as us, which means you walk on the whole of the foot, not just on the toes. So that's the sole and the toes at the same time. And that means they've got quite a distinct and large footprint as well. They've got sharp claws, obviously, and show off impressive stamina. A wolverine can travel 24 to 32 kilometers in a day, and often up to 64 kilometers if they're in search of food and they've got a whiff of something. So they will trek through pretty horrible conditions. Let's face it, I would not want to be in a frozen Arctic sort of situation, hoping to find a dead caribou carcass frozen under the snow and sniffing it out from a good distance. So they find this, let's say, through their smell, and they can even pinpoint it in deep snow. So the name Wolverine. This is an animal that unfortunately has a lot of myths surrounding it, and we'll touch on myths as well. But just like the many names that Wolverine goes by, Hugh Jackman, Patch, Weapon X, Jean Valjean, Prisoner 24601.
Cavalry.
Yes, I thought Danny DeVito. But yes, the Wolverine has many names, just like the actor and the actors who have portrayed the character. The actual Wolverine's scientific name, Gullo Gullo, comes from the Latin meaning glutton, owing to their reputation supposedly for eating anything and everything.
Yeah.
Now, they're not gluttonous in the sense that they sit there and eat everything. They're an animal that survives in a harsh environment, and when they find food, they will eat what they can.
Yeah.
And they will eat whatever they can.
They can't afford to pass up a meal.
Exactly. Now, there are various other names across different cultures, and they have lots of different aliases, and I'm probably going to butcher a lot of these different pronunciations. So I apologize to pretty much everyone who I'm going to mention. Pacajou, I believe, is the French-Canadian version of an Algonquin word. And in fact, there's a lot of animals that the Algonquin language gives us, so raccoon and lots of others, which is Qui-Qua-Su, is basically another name for it. Couldn't find what that means, but a lot of them do go along the same line of basically animal that eats a lot. Wolverine itself is an archaic English spelling from the 1700s, and it's thought it's actually got a Norse origin. So think of small wolf, basically, in that sort of sense, because wolf as well is Norse in origin.
Yeah.
In Russian, it's known as the Rosamaka, which could not find the translation behind that one. And the Felfaras in Norwegian, meaning mountain cat.
Oh, right.
Which I quite like that. I mean, they do look a bit cat-like in some ways, but yeah. The quick hatch is another Algonquin name for these animals as well.
Quick hatch.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I imagine it's probably not spelt that same way as we have it written there.
Mm.
It's probably spelt very differently. And in Scandinavian, it's also known as the Frelfaras or mountain cat. So, yeah, they basically seem to either be called gluttons or mountain cats. So, it'd be interesting to see where, like the original origin for a lot of those come from.
Yeah.
But they used to have a much wider distribution, which we'll get onto now. So you can imagine that obviously the Latin name for glutton and everything comes when probably at some point they would have gone as far south as
Yeah.
Italy and things like that, especially the Alps and
Yeah, I was going to say, or at least they would have got, because you've got the Carpathian Mountains, which form, they're the ones that form a continuous mountain. No, they form part of a continuous mountain range, don't they?
Yeah.
So I imagine they would have had them at the very least along the Carpathian Mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they join to other mountain ranges. So yeah.
So obviously we've been talking about wolverines in the sense of Canada, mostly because it links nicely with the Marvel character,
Yeah.
because that is where he is from. Like many other great Canadian superheroes, Deadpool, Sasquatch, Puck. I can't remember. There's a variety of
Captain
other.
Canada.
Yeah, but yeah, Canadian superheroes unite. So wolverines are found in two major populations, not just Canada. There's the North American subset of them, Gullo Gullo luscus, and the Eurasian, which is Gullo Gullo Gullo. So glutton, glutton, glutton.
That's a really greedy one, that.
While
That has its cake and eats it.
well, and then the person who eats the cake with the cake as well. While they appear nearly identical, there are some very slight differences. Some slight genetic and ecological differences exist between the two. But genetic studies show that these populations diverged approximately 300,000 to 500,000 years ago during the Pleistocene epoch, basically when glaciation events separated populations across the Bering Land Bridge. This is the same point where we see a lot of species interchange throughout Eurasia and North America at that same point. But since then, the animals have been able to become their own in many ways. So the Eurasian wolverines are generally larger and range across Scandinavia, Russia, Mongolia, and Siberia. Now, usually you would think that the North American subspecies would be the larger of the two, but our European ones are a bit tougher, I guess. Make of that what you will. So North American wolverines occupy parts of Alaska, Canada, and the Northern Rockies. And despite their separation, both populations play similar ecological roles. They are basically solitary apex scavengers of cold polar regions and boreal regions as well.
Yeah.
There's not much else that is going to strip a carcass open, especially even if it's frozen. Even wolves and bears aren't as good at doing it as these guys are. And in doing that, it opens it up for other species like ravens, magpies, things like that to get in and help clear up the carcasses. So, yeah, they are part of the cleanup crew in themselves. So wolverines roam some of the most unforgiving wilderness on Earth, but they're not common. In fact, they live at a naturally low density due to their home range requirements and their solitary nature. So they are scattered in the wild, and seeing one, I imagine, in the wild would be quite a feat.
Yeah.
We certainly don't have them here in the UK anymore. Global populations, though, their estimates suggest that in Alaska, there's around 7,000 to 10,000 individuals, basically large area of pretty much undisturbed wilderness in large parts of Alaska. Canada, 15,000 to 19,000 wolverines, mostly in the Yukon and the Northwestern Territories, British Columbia, and Nunavut. In the lower 48 states, so basically in the US states, the United States, there are fewer than 400 individuals. That kind of says something in some ways. These individuals are mostly in Montana, Idaho, and Washington state.
Still very much north then.
Yes, basically they're hugging the border. They're trying to get back over to Canada.
If
they had any sense, they'd probably
we don't blame them.
We don't hate America that much, just its current political climate. Anyway, back to this. The Scandinavian wolverines, that's Norway, Sweden, and Finland, their population is around 1,000 to 1,300. So Russia and Siberia are probably the largest space for these animals to roam. 12,000 to 14,000 individuals, which if you compare that to the rest of them, Canada still beats them out.
Yeah.
In a space considerably smaller. So, yeah, there you go. But they once occupied nearly all of the boreal forest and subarctic tundras of the Northern Hemisphere. But their range has shrunk massively in the US. They've gone from the Great Lakes, much of the Rockies, and pretty much anywhere else that they would have been, capable of getting to, been wiped out. In Europe, pretty much the same. They vanished from the Alps and much of Central Europe. So where their sort of Latin part of their name, meaning gullo gullo, would have come from the fact that these guys would have gone as far south as Italy, but no more, unfortunately.
When you say that they,
and in the UK as well.
You've just answered the question I was going to answer. Don't worry.
So this would have been a species that would have also been present in the UK as well at one point, and I would love to see these guys roaming our forests.
I would so love for there to be wolverines here, but we're
more than wolves in my mind.
Can't bloody put up with badgers.
Well, yeah, this is like hyper badger.
But, like, wow, yeah. I think there'd be like just
they'd lose their minds.
Population-wide heart attacks in the farmer community.
So their diet. Well, if Logan likes to eat steaks, the real Wolverine prefers pretty much steaks or whatever it can find, really. Wolverines are opportunistic omnivores, which basically means they are built to eat whatever, wherever, and whoever they manage to find, because they will quite happily catch and kill prey, but they're also not fussed on eating, let's say, a frozen caribou carcass or a long dead carcass or eggs or fruit or nuts, whatever they find. They are pretty much a walking dustbin in some ways. Hence where the glutton title comes in. But they are, even though they're considered by some as getting a reputation as being living garbage disposals, they are more calculated than that.
Because my dad, who's not with us anymore, he used to call me the living disposal.
There you go. You are a Wolverine.
It's the closest I've ever felt to Hugh Jackman right now. Shame I don't have the six-pack.
It's in the fridge, haven't you?
Not mine.
Wow. So, in the winter, these animals rely heavily on carrion, scavenging carcasses from dead moose, caribou, bison, mountain goats, whatever they find. Basically, if it dies in the snow, these guys will track it down and eat it, and basically get rid of the carcass. So often they'll have leftovers from wolf or human hunt kills, and they're not going to pass up easy meals. Their powerful jaws and neck muscles capable of crushing frozen bones, and they'll often drag away huge carcasses compared to their body and cache them under the snow or underneath a log or in the brush themselves to basically wait it out and come back. That meat is aged a bit, It's vintage meat. Yes, yeah. But in the summer, they expand their menus, so they'll eat everything from voles, squirrels, snowshoe hares, and Arctic hares, ground nesting birds and their eggs. So 2-for-1 meal there if you're lucky enough to get it. Occasionally, they'll even eat young Dall sheep, marmots, insects, berries, herbs, you name it. They'll pretty much eat whatever. And do you know what? I've often thought, that question of what animal would you like to be? Apart from the snow element of this, because I hate the snow, I think I'd quite happily be a Wolverine.
So what you're really saying is that you'd like to be a honey badger then?
Yeah, no, it's the lions and dealing with all of that rubbish.
I don't think a lion is going to bother you.
It's the having to deal with lions, hyenas, and all of that. I think I'd rather be. I don't know. I'll come back to that. So, there are many myths surrounding wolverines. They're often known as the berserker beasts of legend, these sort of animals that will fight a bear. And in fact, even I did that in the beginning there. I made it seem like it was about to fight a bear. So I've played into this a bit.
But that's funny because berserker doesn't come from anything to do with Wolverine. Berserker
No.
is like that's a bear warrior.
Well, that was just me.
Okay, sorry, right, I get it. Sorry.
But they're not quite the they're not quite the sort of like fight everything animal that you might think. They are tough, but they're not reckless. Tales of them attacking wolves and bears are mostly myth. In reality, they avoid large predators where possible, but they will fiercely defend a carcass from other animals. Usually, it's the same sort of calculated method that animals will have. If they know that they could probably scare the animal off, they'll try and scare the animal off.
Yeah.
If they know that it's a fight they can't win, they'll back away because it's not worth losing your life over to try and do that. They'll quite happily scare off foxes and other wolverines, but they know better than to challenge a whole pack of wolves, for instance, or a very large Kodiak or something like that. So yeah, they're not stupid. They're not as bloodthirsty in what they do as most old folklore about these animals claim. They're calculated, persistent, and incredibly adaptive and smart, like most members of the weasel family, but not mindless killers. Think more Batman than the Hulk.
Okay.
So think. I know I threw a DC reference in there, but he's calculated in how he does things.
Yeah, I think it's probably a good analogy.
So their strength and endurance are undeniable. And that's why their legend persists. It's because, like I say, they will travel 64 kilometers to find food. They will run through the snow. They'll sniff things out. They'll pull out whole carcasses to basically feast on months down the line. They are pure endurance and strength. Their life cycle is also something worth mentioning as well. Wolverine litters arrive between February and April, so they're being born right now. And they typically are found inside of snow caves, sometimes up to 50 meters into a snowdrift.
Wow.
That's how far they will burrow into areas to make a den. So, and of a considerable size as well. Think badger sets, basically.
Yeah.
Litters average around 2 to 3 kits, each weighing under a pound at birth. There's a twist worthy of an X-Men plot as well. They're also capable of delayed implantation. So after mating from May to August, the embryo doesn't implant until November to December. This allows the mother to give birth only when her body and food resources can support it. So she can basically have a bad winter and go, no, and put the whole thing off and wait until next year. Or if it's been a good winter, she can, continue on with that. Didn't you say that the Martins had the ability to do that as well?
Yeah.
So there you go. Although they're in slightly more tropical, slightly easier weather to cope with than their hardier boreal cousins. So Wolverines mature sexually at around 2 years old, but fewer than 10% of 2-year-old females actually get to be able to reproduce. Right. Some females don't produce litters every year, depending on obviously the food availability.
Yeah.
And young wolverines reach about adult size in about 6 to 8 months. Most males leave their mother and her range at around one age, covering around 1,000 square miles before claiming their own territory. So they will roam looking for places to find.
So they're not so they don't socialize even briefly. They just come together for breeding then.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
And it's like a lot of the mustelids.
Yeah.
Apart from things like badgers, they only really come together to rear their young, and that's about it.
Yeah.
So, So females may remain in their birthplace if the resident female dies as well, which it's a fun way to gain the house,
Inheritance.
So in the wild, you can expect these guys to live from 5 to 7 years on average, although some have actually reached 12 to 13, and that's usually ones in captivity. Starvation, predation by wolves, and territorial clashes with other wolverines are usually their biggest killers in most things, other than humans.
Yeah,
which,
of course.
Globally, the wolverine is listed as least concern. But that doesn't tell the full story. As per usual, giving it this sort of, blanket thing doesn't do it justice. In Europe, it's classified as vulnerable due to its shrinking habitat and persecution by farmers and all sorts of other groups, and even people who still hunt them for their fur. In the lower 48 states in America, it's a candidate for federal protection. We'll see how well that goes. And their biggest threats is essentially habitat fragmentation by roads, ski resorts as well, snowmobile activity, basically destroying denning sites and disrupting their territory. Climate change is actually one of the biggest ones that is affecting these guys. They're not only reliant on cold weather, but they're reliant on persistent snow cover in spring for birthing dens, and warming temperatures are basically causing this to be an issue. They operate far better in the cold than they do in the hot because they are built to be. They're basically a relic of the Ice Age.
Yeah,
they are an Ice Age animal that needs colder temperatures.
They kind of fall into that this weird category of animals that I have in my head, along with the Amur tiger and the polar bear.
Yeah,
that just you look at them, and even though they're very similar to the ratel, and they do bear resemblance to the badgers, none of them do it quite as much. But the wolverine, certainly with Amur tigers and polar bears, there's something prehistoric about them.
Yes, they are really primitive, but primitive in a good way, I think.
Yeah.
So overharvesting in regions where heavy trapping still occurs, populations have declined rapidly due to their slow reproduction. And like I say, they don't breed that quickly. They've got a low population density, so it can impact them quite a bit. And in Alaska, where populations are stable, conservation efforts are focused on maintaining large wilderness tracts and regulated harvest zones that basically mean, there are protected areas and there are non-protected areas, which is possibly the best way to do this. Although I would make the argument that, do you really need to hunt a wolverine for its fur? We have coats, So while Logan may be fictional, Gullo Gullo is very real and just as worthy as any comic book legend. They're rugged individuals of the animal world. They're mysterious, misunderstood, and almost mythical in their resilience. No claws, no cigar, but every bit a survivor, as our famous adamantium claw wielding Canadian.
I was going to say, so what you're saying is they don't have metal skeletons.
They do not, but I think that would be the next step for them.
Then that won't happen through experimentation. That'll just, for this animal, it would just happen through evolution.
They'll just eat a lot of metal one day, and that'll be it. So, bringing it back to our Marvel or mammal, so I can tell you now.
Yeah.
Lobenzo?
No.
Yep. Is actually the Spanish name for Wolverine the character. That's what is on his comics.
So I got that one right.
Yep. Which animal is known to eat frozen meat off the bone and even the bone? Well, that is the Wolverine the animal. Which is known to use its claws to climb walls.
Logan.
Well, both actually, because they can. You're thinking of sort of
not even that. It's that, doesn't he?
Yeah.
No, they are well known to try and escape zoos as well.
Very good. Yes. Yeah, they're very good at climbing.
A nice little trick question in there.
Which is known not to just survive in minus 40 degrees temperature, but actually prefer it.
That's the animal, I think.
It is, but there is several. I spent quite a while looking through comic book lore as to whether Logan had eaten caribou or anything like that. There are no accounts of Logan eating an animal carcass, which I'm a little bit shocked at. I'd have thought that would have come up in at least one comic, but
I have a weird feeling that at least in some, I might be wrong about this, but I think in at least some of his comics, he might actually be vegetarian.
Yeah, there's lots of different versions of the same character, but yes, that is the animal. Although Wolverine, the character, is known to be able to cope with temperatures like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is the Wolverine, and I didn't get to say the word snicked or bub at all there. So yeah,
blob.
But yes, a really fun animal and a really cool character. So.
Yeah.
Now, should we move into our emails for this week?
Yeah.
Bing! You've got mail. Ooh, it's an email.
Right, we're going to kick things off with the results of last week's interesting vote to see who ended up in the final with Deinakairos.
It's not interesting.
And you might be able to guess by the way that Aaron's just going with that it didn't go the way that he figured. In fact, to be honest, it didn't go the way that either of us figured in the slightest, actually.
It's not going the way the artwork deserved. That's all it is, Gareth.
It all comes down to the hands of fate. Because, well, this was a draw again. We had a draw. I thought the narwhal was easily going through, but no, it came down to a draw. So we've had to try and figure this out in another sort of democratically, sort of completely random way as possible. So we've included that video now, I think. So what we've got essentially is your better half essentially blind picking from two pieces of paper, one with S on it for still towel, and the other one with N on it for narwhal. And as you might be able to see from the images now, she chose the still towel, completely blind. So it's not.
That's not what happened.
It's not, is it? Okay, what happened?
What happened is our cupboard dwellers somehow managed to sneak in here and get
In the
still
split
out
second.
on both bits of paper. Her hand was forced.
I wrote it on there, and you saw me do it.
Yeah, someone came in and binned it. In fact, I'm gonna give away your game, Gareth. Actually, because he didn't write
D
narwhal.
on the other
He
one.
wrote Deinakairos. He's trying to eliminate narwhal before it even had a chance.
Well, it came through as still towel, thankfully.
I'm angry.
So yes, that's the Hawaiian still towel in the final with Deinakairos, which is an odd, extinct birds special, basically. Well, I think we know who. Well, actually, who are you going for? Best of a bad job now, isn't it? Your preferred one's gone out. Deinakairos wasn't my preferred, neither was Hawaiian still towel. But I'm going Deinakairos.
Are you?
Yeah. It's the better out of the two. I've not liked Hawaiian still towel from the outset, I'm afraid, even though it was one of my creatures.
I'm going to go with you and go Deinakairos.
Okay, so Team Deinakairos for the win. And yeah, we'll see what happens. So make your vote now. It's up on our Facebook page, and you can do so in the YouTube comments as well. And we'll basically let everyone know who's won next week. So yeah,
we all know that in our hearts, the narwhal won, and that's what's important. He might not be the champion.
Well, do you know what?
He's the people's champion.
Well, I'll tell you what. We'll do like a third place runner up thing. So you can have narwhal versus Weisant.
Third place runner up. That's like second place in a long line of losers.
Wow. Someone certainly had a lot of team spirit put into them as a youngster. So yeah, she will go into our comments from our YouTube. Do
you know what? I don't think that these two deserve their comments read out.
No, you can't.
They voted for still out.
You can't start penalising people based on how they voted.
No, because that would be undemocratic, and we wouldn't want someone in a authoritative
position of power making exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So, excuse me. Sorry.
Choking on your own words there.
Choking on my own words. Yes. Right. So our first comment comes to us from Rose Lee 9961, who says, "Well, even though there might not be too much faith in this one, you think?" I'm angry. I'm going to stand with the Hawaiian stilt owl. It's beautifully done, and I wouldn't mind having a dinosaur face-off in the final, though the narwhal is beautifully done, and I wouldn't be upset or shocked at all if it wins. Then you should have voted for it.
There's some anger here.
Drew once again with inspo from Aaron did an amazing job of all the pretty paras, so they're trying to win me over now after my
yeah.
The amphibian inspo was such a unique idea. Don't try and get me on side. I will say to me at least, the colours for Parasaurolophus walkeri does feel kind of like a hybrid of the paraskins from the original Jurassic Park trilogy. Yeah, you're right. The general green color, like the original Jurassic Park and Jurassic Park 3, and the banding on the tail with the red pompadour, like the one in Jurassic Park Lost World. Yes, AI isn't my cup of tea either. Actual artists are extremely important in society.
Mm.
We've been making art for thousands of years. It's in our nature. Yes, we're storytellers. Uh, they say, but there you go. But the more hand-drawn appearing ones for Aaron's saber rat does look kind of good. The Terragull AI was most certainly terrifying, to say the least. Also, I love the shady comment about me picking the Dinocaris over the Wyson, where you've got more
It's gonna
shady
get
comments
even
this week.
shadier.
Good friends are able to pick a little fun at each other. So to friendly, not a word. So I hope you understand the energy behind it all. Just fun and games. Yes. Yeah, we get it. Comment back on it. The Diet Light American Bison got what it deserved. What? Diet Light.
Well, it's been nice knowing you, but I don't think Aaron's going to be reading any of your comments out from now on.
So yeah, another despite having to disagree with you fundamentally about the about the stilt owl and the narwhal, that
your
is a
diet
very
bison.
nice comment. And I think we both agree. We actually, funnily enough, we actually both hate AI. Well,
Yeah.
I think I hate it more than you though.
It has its image. It has its images.
It does have its
It
images.
does have its images. It has its uses. But yeah, it's one of those things that it's very easy to fall into just using it entirely. It's very useful for doing stuff in education setting, like getting it to write 50 questions or something to
Getting it
use.
to subliminally get kids to vote for Skynet.
I mean, yes, why
Terminator
not? Yeah.
reference for those
If
of you
a
that are too young.
if a robot turned up, would you A, be happy for it to enslave humanity, or be not? Yes, it does seem to come through with that every now and again when I'm doing like a biology quiz or something. It's weird.
If you ask Alexa if she's involved with Skynet, she's got quite a funny answer. I can't
yeah.
remember it word for word, so I don't want to ruin it. But if you have Alexa, if you have an Alexa,
Well,
ask it.
if you're saying this loud enough, you might be able to get it.
Yeah,
you know.
like you and Shane used to do when we were playing Call of Duty.
But you were the first
Grand Theft
you were
Auto.
the first one out of all of us to have anything like that, and
Yeah.
your settings on it must have been so sensitive that all we had to do was shout down our microphones whilst playing online with him. We could get it to play smooth jazz, all sorts of things in the background, and it was just yeah, it was it was fun.
I will just say the Alexa is not mine. I do not like.
Yeah.
I do not like these things. I struggle just having Siri on the phone. Oh, I'm going to wake it up now.
Nope, you
No,
didn't.
that's all right. So yeah,
Moving swiftly on.
we don't like AI here. I just thought it would be funny to make these animals fight. Anyway, the next comment comes from Renin Ton, and they say, "I feel more than often when I have messaged, it ends in a Gareth Witter comment." So this week, my vote is going to be the long-legged Hawaiian stilt owl, not only for what I believe is the best art out of the last 8, but as it would be a lot better equipped for kicking down at trees than Aaron would, which is one of the funniest stories I have heard as I have been steamrolling through the Spotify backlog. Well,
Oh wow.
I'm glad you enjoyed the tree non-felon kick. Yeah, that was pretty funny. That was.
Mm.
And that's all of our YouTube comments.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there is another way you can get in contact with us, and that is via our email, which is the nathistorykcupboard@gmail.com, which I think we've got 1 or 2 in there.
Yeah.
What do we got?
We do have one email this week. It comes to us from Big Pumba again. So he says, "Hey there, guys. Big Pumba back again. Just playing catch up with the last couple of weeks' episodes. Thanks again for answering my last question. And I look forward to hearing what other people would think of the speculative evolution. On that note, I do think Rose Lee on YouTube.
Yeah, that spawned a whole bunch of other things.
That was good. Yeah. The animal I'll throw in just for the moment until it gets opened up to the public is this. Domestic pigs.
Oh,
a few thousand years after the fall of man. Oh, he's setting up a movie.
Planet of the Pigs.
Domestic pigs have split into 2 groups. Hogus gigas, a 4.5 meter tall, 1 ton carnivorous swine
Yeah.
that travels in small sounders using its heightened intelligence to coordinate ambush hunts.
Oh my God.
They have lost the standard shovel nose of their domestic kin, and instead a longer, narrow but robust snout has evolved to aid in dispatching prey. Using the old T-Rex hunts in packs method of the younger individuals pursuing the prey into an ambush by the larger, stocky adults. That's a cool thought.
Sort of swine wars.
Yeah, that's a cool thought. The flip side, Swinicus planei? Yes, Swinicus planei, or the shovel tooth, a leaner animal about the size of a red deer stag that specializes in eating the radioactive fungus of 4,000 year future Burnley. I think you've got something that's Burnley. Well, who hasn't?
Me? Because I don't think I've ever been there.
To add to previous comments, I really do enjoy the community here, and it really is a highlight of my week when there is a new podcast on a Sunday.
Well, thank you.
I was actually going to say when we were talking about how Rose Lee on YouTube answered his Big Pumba's question about speculative evolution, that it's another example of that nice community that we're starting to see. Big Pumba follows up my top 5 birds to see. Number 1, Shmew Drake in the wild.
Shmew are nice.
And that sounds like some sort of Pokemon dragon, but I know it's better. I've seen
it's a duck.
I've not seen it like in flesh, but I've seen it in imagery. White-tailed eagle.
Very nice.
Yeah. Puffins.
Yeah.
Short-eared owl.
Also a nice species.
Like
yeah, all right.
And finally, to wrap up this very long-winded email, myself and Mrs. Pumba went out last Sunday for the first time with my bat monitor I got last Christmas. Cool. Wow. Really great fun. And I'm going to have to say it. I think it rivals birding. Don't attack me. We won't. That's cool. I've attached a video here. We are pretty sure we got pipistrelle bats, not sure which subspecies, and potentially a noctule too. I highly recommend trying it out. I think we should try that out at some point. He also says, if there's any excited bad words, please forgive me. I'll put it up and I'll mute it. We'll put it up whilst we're talking.
We can't mute it because you won't hear it. It's a bat video.
That's true.
Here, stare into the darkness. Stare into the darkness with us.
It says, have a great week, everyone. Kind regards, Big Pumba. And have a great week to you too. That's a really awesome email.
Getting a bat detector is one of those things that's on my list, especially the ones that sort of plug into your phone. You know, you can get quite a few of those relatively cheap. They're a lot cheaper than they used to be, but yeah.
Yeah, that's the one good thing is as it becomes more available and more companies start kind of producing it, brings the prices down a bit, isn't it?
Can I just, is that on the email?
That's already
yeah. Oh, cool. Well, that actually leads us neatly into a little segue. You may have noticed these little black tags there on us. This is a new bit of tech that we're trialing out. You'll notice there's no microphone here.
There's not.
You may have noticed that.
Black, like
yeah,
which is really cool, and it's served us really, really well.
And we're not getting rid of them.
No, we're still going to use it.
We are trusting the tech this week to see if it works, for the simple reason that, well, linking quite nicely into our Patreons, which we'll explain about in a minute. This is one of those upgrades of tech that we've been able to do. So we've now got lapel mics that we can go out and about, do an awful lot more recording, be on location. And annoyingly, they didn't get here in time for us to go out into that bluebell wood the other day, because that would have been really good to get some out and about stuff. But you managed to get some drone shots and everything. So we're getting there. You know, BBC Natural History Unit, watch out. We're coming for you. We've got microphones that can go out of here now. But to say a massive thank you and to tell you about our Patreons, let's have a look at that now.
Every week, we like to give a little love back by shouting out the names of our wonderful Patreon supporters.
That's right. These are the cupboard dwellers who are kind enough to support us through a monetary contribution, for which we are eternally grateful and grateful beyond words.
And those people are, of course, Fogtober, Jen Greenhall, Connie P, Chelsea McKee, Nick to Nick,
Owen Cox,
and Matt Geddy.
Guys, your financial contributions are actively helping us out here in the Natural History Cupboard in a myriad of ways, including developing our new studio, planning excursions and being able to go out and film on location, considering technical upgrades and actually making the jump from a solely audio-based podcast to the now growing YouTube channel. And we really can't thank you enough for that.
Now, we appreciate all of our cupboard dwellers and the support you offer us through listening, liking, sharing, and subscribing. But if you feel we've earned it and you're considering joining our Patreon, there are 2 options through which you can do so.
That's the Nature Nerds and the Animal Ambassador tiers, which you can find on the Patreon website or links through our social media as well, and each one having different benefits for you to enjoy.
And now back to Gareth and Aaron in the studio.
So yes, a massive thank you to our patrons. We couldn't do it without you guys. It allows us to be able to make these sort of upgrades and keep pushing the podcast further. So that pretty much brings us to the end of this week's episode. So
It does.
big thank you, Aaron.
Big thank you, Gareth.
That's all right. Yeah, it's good. And a big thank you to you at home for joining us, and we'll see you next time here in the Natural History Cupboard. Bye.
Bye.
Snick. So, Aaron, what do you call a cross between a skunk, a wolverine, and a porcupine?
Skunk, a wolverine, and a porcupine. Skunk, a wolverine. No, I don't know.
You call it Sir, but from a distance.